Hello, awesome people. I hope you're having an amazing day today. Today, I want to take a look and see what I thought about the Dungeons and Dragons systems. I've played them all, but my favorite one that I go back to and I use whenever I'm a dungeon master or solo play is the second edition from the Skills and Powers with folks. So I wanted to explain why that was my favorite. Now, just for historical context, I started with BECMI, the basic set, in the mid '80s when I was just a little under 10 years old in 5th grade, and I bought the In Search of Adventure, the basic set, and then the expert set in BECMI too, and then I sold and bought a couple of Dungeons and Dragons games in the second edition that had come out at that time in the late 80s, and then and their player's handbook and DM's guide. I was running campaigns. Then I saw some of my friends that I was playing with at college and junior high were playing in first edition, so I moved over to first edition for them and played some of that too for a few campaigns, and then Skills and Powers came out while I was in college, so I bought that and then I played it. Loved Skills and Powers so much, and then I played some third edition when it came out too a lot, and I played a lot of 3.52 Pathfinder. Played a lot of Pathfinder too. As well as a video game. I've played some 4th edition too here and there. Not that much. Just that's what you want to have the least stuff about. And I played a few campaigns here and there to the more modern version. And I'm going to talk about why Skills and Powers, while it might be controversial, is my favorite version of the game. So let's start. Let's first talk about why I like it the most. Let's start. So the reason why I like it the most is because it is the most flexible. Because you have, so basically what's happening with Skills and Powers, this is a player's option book that you can buy. It gives you additional options. So where you have assigned things because your class, you're now getting points from your class and your race and your later on proficiencies, and you can spend on various things based on how powerful they are. And the more powerful, the more points you have cost. And you can also buy weaknesses here and there too. And I thought that was a brilliant way to make different classes seem more unique, because it definitely seems like not everybody in a class would have the same thing. For example, in a previous edition, a fighter could use a mace, right? Another fighter could use a mace. I could use an axe in order to be different, right? But how would two mace wielders be the same? Well, they wouldn't be, right? But in this edition, they had different combat feats. From the combat and tactics, they can have different weapons, proficiencies. One could be an expert. One could use an axe, a mace, and two hands, or better wield it, or an axe and one-handed weapon, or just an axe and a shield, and have different weapon specializations, so they can use it in different ways. So I thought that was a really brilliant way to make things seem more realistic and grounded, and also really unlocking, again, players' options, which is what this book is for. So I loved it. Now, it did have some issues. For example, some people thought it was too easy to break. Yeah, I hear you. It can be. If you want to, right? Because it was for proficiencies. It had traits and things like awareness and stuff like that, and disadvantages too that you could take with you too, or you able to use your both hands like ambidextrous. If you combine kind of out of you could really create a character that was really powerful. Totally think that's up to the game, to the Dungeon Master, to make sure that doesn't happen, right? That's their job, to make sure that the character makes sense. Also, your character would make, right, and so forth. So I thought it was such a great idea. And I thought that when they went to 3rd edition, they would get rid of classes altogether and just have race skill points, and then different skill points, like choosing which weapon attacks you're going to have, or what Thaco you're going to have, what hit point dice you could use, experience point charts, spell progression, if you had spell access, all those sorts of things you could choose based on your points rather than just your class. I thought that's where they're going to go. And then when they didn't, I created a classless version. I still have races, but I created a classless version to have some fun with and characterize it. So that's where I went up going with it. So now let's take a look at why second edition Skills and Powers is how it stacks up with other people's favorite skills. For example, base second edition, I feel like this adds a lot more. It has a lot more weapon. I think it's much better when it comes to non-weapon proficiencies. Non-proficiencies were added as an option. In first edition, they were core. The idea is that, and I really like not only proficiencies from the second edition and 2.5, because they end up giving you the opportunity to really reflect something. Like, can you swim or not? Can you ride horse or not? Well, do you have the proficiency? No, then you can't. Right? And I enjoy that way of doing things, right? Because it makes sense, right? Whether or not you can do these things. So I like it. So it makes sense. So you can, and then you would be skill tested if you push. You can also use that for blacksmithing or lock picking, making locks instead of picking like locksmithing, that sort of thing. And then you can also try to talk to people, or heraldry, or craftsmanships, and various things. Right? I love that. I thought that was great. So I definitely prefer that in second edition or 2.5 in particular, because I think that rather than just having a weapon proficiency that you can use on one thing, as I thought, it has more specific breakdowns for that. So I do like that more than the second edition plain. But I like it more than the first edition plain because, again, the addition of no proficiencies. I think it's simplified in a few ways from first edition here and there. I do like it preferred to BECMI because I think it's more fleshed out. There's more spells. There's more fleshed out things. You have classes and races rather than just classes as races. Like the elf or the dwarf or the halfling are separate classes. In BECMI, as one example, so you have tons more options on player's option than I did growing up in BECMI. I bought into the second edition because the spellbook had so many books. Right, it had more spells in one book, and then like 3 or 4 combinations of spells, which were like 12 each level. So it's great stuff. I loved it so much because of how well detailed it was. And that was second edition, and now it's the third edition. Has a lot of options too, but the third and 3.5 has some issues too. Not every edition has its issues, right, and has some great stuff too. But some of the issues that I had with 3.5 and earlier, 3.0, I don't like the prestige classes that much. I feel like the power gaming. I would prefer to have to manage, people like as a dungeon master of skills and powers. Not choosing the wrong things or being in a power game. I'd rather manage that and say, no, that doesn't make sense, right? Or reconfigure balance and just have to kind of say, oh, prestige classes, they're silly. No thanks, right? They are totally overpowered. I also thought that it had some issues with the flavor, the over-content of the game. I would prefer to have gone to classes than letting you choose another class instead when you level up, which is the next best thing. I do like that. I also like that it got rid of some of the restrictions for things. You can be a halfling and a paladin too, like Mazning, Baldur's Gate 2. So there are some good things that it does. But you can, if you move to a classless level, I think you're going to remove all those things because then you can play whatever you wanted to play, right? So I thought that would have been a better play. So I feel like there are some good things it does, but ultimately there's some things that hold it back too. 4th edition, probably better. As I said, 5th edition is overly simple. It's almost like BECMI and how simplified it has, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Everything in 5th edition comes about in rolling a die 20, and sometimes you'll roll with initiative. You'll roll with roll two die 20s and take the highest one, or you roll 2 die 20s and take the lowest one, right? So pretty much everything is done in die 20s to resolve things, right? Can I ride a horse in this situation? Instead of saying, oh, you get the riding horse. You can, well, that's an unusual situation. Then you would roll your riding skill. You would just say, oh, roll die 20 and see if you can. I just don't feel like that fits as well, right? With what I'm trying to do. So I just don't feel like it. I feel like it's overly reliant on the D20 as a resolving mechanism to deal with issues. So that's my issue. And I think probably it's a little too simple too. I prefer the more complex, skills and powers situations. I feel like that's probably a better one. So that's why I feel about skills and powers. And again, it has some issues. Yes, it can go down to power gaming. Yes, it's more complex. Yeah, you can make sure that everything that people change make flavor sense. I did too. And you should be choosing some things for flavor rather than things for just a good role playing, rather than just power gaming, right? So, for example, I had a character who was a son of an evil mayor of the city. He was lawful evil, and so he's also lawful evil too, and a very, very popular guy. And so I give him. He started out as an axe wielding warrior. Then he dual classed over to mage race as a hard mage. But it was a lot. He was initially a bad guy, but I created him to run a couple of campaigns to see what you can do with a lawful evil take on things. And his names themselves are. So fun stuff. But then so for example, I would give him some things that made sense just as a character. He was a mercenary for a while. The second in command of a mercenary unit. So I chose the Myrmidon kit. Now there would be kits that are just a whole lot better, much more powerful from the fighters back. But it just made sense because he was a professional fighter, right? It didn't give him any major things, right? But it was the role-playing thing to do. So make them do a role-playing thing and a flavor thing rather than the power gaming thing. That's all you have to do. So that's why skills and powers is my favorite thing, and I still use it to this day. Whenever I'm choosing a set of thing, and the players don't mind. Now, if you do nothing new, I'll just do physician because it's the most modern, and we'll move on. For folks, I'll just modernize some of the things and so forth, right? But I have some issues with this edition. Not necessarily simple, but I don't like how it does armor class. It's just way too hard to get pluses, and so it helps out. It makes things a little more competitive by increasing the hit points of 5th edition, rather than making that challenge harder and just having more bad guys. Having lower hit points but harder to hit things because you get pluses as you level up and you get more skill bonuses and that sort of a thing. Right. So I just don't like how this armor class and hit points. I think the challenge rating makes no sense. But yeah, your mileage will be very. You might love 5th edition, and 5th edition is so good, right? Still fine. I'm never going to turn down an opportunity to roleplay Dungeons and Dragons, right? It's just my preference. Skill powers. So that's why. For you folks. So there you are. That's my preference. So what do you think? What is your favorite version, including BECMI, to play BECMI first, second, 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4, or 5? Tell me what you know in the comments below. Why? I'd appreciate it. So let's have a conversation about this for you folks. And then if you enjoyed this, why not hit the subscribe button, the like button, the bell icon if you're feeling frisky and be notified of my videos each week. And then finally, just let your friends know about this particular Dungeons & Dragons playing friends. And then finally, I just want to thank you so much for taking some time out of your day and investing it and watching my video, because we all have so many things that are happening right in our lives. And we're pulled in so many different directions. So the fact that you spent this time with me, that's incredibly humbling. And I appreciate it. Thanks again, and have an amazing day.